came, and then that was the end of Shaka Zulu. But the Zulu kingdom was still intact, and then Dingaan assumed power. Okay, he came after Shaka. He became the new king. Okay, and immediately it meant that he had to consolidate his power, and then he purged. Say purged. Okay. Now, that is where you attack, you kill, you chase, okay? People that favor a certain side, okay? It's a revenge like. So he purged pro-Shaka's elements, all those people, all Shaka's loyal members, okay? Many of his favorite chieftains, okay? To remove them so that he could roll unopposed. All right? But Dingaan still had a problem. The problem was, how was he going to maintain the loyalty? Loyalty means still believe in him. How was he going to make people follow him? Loyalty comes from the word loyal. Okay? So, number one, he had to win the loyalty of the Zulu forces, the Zulu troops, the regiments, or Amabutu. So, he had to come up with changes very fast. Do you remember during Shaka's reign, men were not allowed to marry? So Dingaan allowed men to marry, and he also allowed them to build their homes, their homesteads. And this was not allowed when Shaka was the king. Secondly, those soldiers were given cattle. Dingaan gave them cattle. All right? And then the reason why I said at the beginning that we are going to look at how Dingaan maintained his kingdom. And I did not say by peaceful means, because these are one of the reasons. Do you know what happened to anyone who opposed Dingaan? He was killed. Okay? So those would not be said to be peaceful means. And then he made Mgungundlovu the capital, his capital, all right? And then he ruled for 12 years. And it was during, at the period of his reign, okay, that he became friends with Piet Retief, all right? And then what had led to the friendship? Remember when Shaka Zulu befriended Henry Fain? It was after Henry Fain had treated Shaka's injuries after he had been stabbed by a rival, a tribe member. Okay? So this time, Dingaan and Piet Retief. Okay? Piet Retief was the leader of the Voortrekkers. He had recovered some of Shaka's stolen cattle. There were other tribes members, some tribe members who had stolen his cattle. So Piet Retief had recovered them for him. Okay? So Dingaan gave the Voortrekkers land. There were documents that were signed, okay? And there are historians that claim that because Dingaan could not read, some saying Dingaan could read, he knew what he was signing. Okay? So on the 6th of February, 1838, Dingaan invited Piet Retief and his followers, okay, to a feast, all right? And then as they entered the kraal with their guns, their firearms, all right, they were told that it was against Zulu tradition to enter the kraal with firearms, and then they were told to leave their firearms or guns outside. A mistake. All right? And then there was a lot of braai meat and dancing. And when the dancing had reached a climax, Dingaan jumped, he leapt to his feet and shouted, Bambani abatakati, in English for catch the wizards. So the men were overpowered. They were dragged to the hill, Kwa Matiwani. This hill, Kwa Matiwani, was named after a chief who had been killed there. Okay? So that is where Retief and his diplomatic party were killed. So there are explanations into why Dingaan had Piet Retief and his men killed. Okay? Some historians allege that it was because Dingani did not really want to give them land. Okay, remember documents had been signed where Dingaan had made concessions of land. Okay, he had set aside land to give to Piet Retief and his voortrekkers. And then there are angles that he did not really want to give them land because he did not trust Retief and the voortrekkers. That's why he had them killed. Another angle is Piet Retief and his voortrekkers followers were killed because after they had recovered the cattle, they withheld some of the cattle that they had recovered from Chief Sikonyela. Okay? You see? So they claim that Piet Retief and his followers did not give Shaka all the cattle that they had recovered. Okay? So that could have been, did not give Dingaan, not Shaka, some of the cattle that they had killed. So there are claims that that could have led to Dingaan killing them. Okay? So the killings did not end there. It is alleged that one of Dingaani's forces surrounded Piet Retief's trek party, which consisted of about 500 Boers, okay? Some of whom were African servants, all right? And then there were also women and children. Dingaani had them killed as well. Okay, and they were killed at a place what is today called Vienna. All right. So the Boers referred to the killing as the Vienna massacre. Vienna is a Dutch word for weeping, crying over those killed. Okay? So in January 1840, Andries Pretorius, another voortrekker leader, you remember we mentioned him as one of the role players, okay? Together with 400 Boer soldiers, okay? They joined Mpande to fight Dingaan, all right? So they clashed at the Battle of Makongo. I'm not sure of the spelling here, but it spells M for Maxon, A for Abraham, Q for Queen, O for one, N for Nelson, G for Giant, Q for Q, and O for one. Makongo. I don't know how you will pronounce this one. Okay? And then a problem for Dingaan now. Some of Dingaani's soldiers defected to Mpande. They joined Mpande, leaving Dingaan defenseless. Okay? And Dingaan also had one of his generals, Ndlela Kansompizi, executed, killed his general. And then he ran to Nayawo territory on the Lubombo Mountains. And then it was there at Hlatikulu forest that Dingaani met his end. He was assassinated. Assassination, a political word for killing or killing of a prominent political figure. So, you see, that is the explanation behind